I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor of Gold Derby, here with composer Elliot Goldenthal, acclaimed composer, whose latest work is the original score to Julie Taymor's biopic, The Glorias, in which Oscar winners Alicia Vikander and Julianne Moore play the iconic Gloria Steinem. Elliot, I just think, this film's fascinating because of the way that Julie decided to tell the story based on her book, on Gloria's book. And I want to go straight to how you've got to balance a whole bunch of periods and locations and styles in this score, don't you? Like, there's a lot going on that you have to unpack when you're composing for this film.
Well, luckily there's a constant. The constant is the Greyhound bus. There's a bus kind of out of time where it's no particular time. It's set in no particular time. Where you have Gloria from childhood to her teenage period, 35 years old, to a mature Gloria, having conversations in this bus that's kind of traveling through kind of on a mysterious highway through the United States throughout her whole life. And that creates a kind of constant. So instead of trying to set all the periods in that bus, I set a kind of, I set the highway. I composed for the highway mainly. So in that sense, I thought of what is quintessential Americana highway sound in the last amplified guitar, playing simple, lonely, sustained chords and sustained melodies, and with little accompaniment. That really set the kind of quick flash of iconic America, big sky country in my mind. It could be the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever. It had a resonance with me. But it also freed me up for the other periods that I'll travel with, 1930s to the present. So I touch on, through my own lenses, of course, the periods reflected in that time periods, including the present time. But also, it freed me up in not letting grand themes or sweeping themes. I let the music be very, very kind of internal in the beginning of the movie, and let it blossom as the movie took off.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that because, the bus out of time construct, thematically anchors and connects the formative moments in Steinem's life. And I think it could have made or broken the film, so to speak. I'm just wondering, how long it took you to realize that you had to make it really timeless. It's very difficult to pinpoint where we're at on that bus. And I think the music has a lot to do with that.
Well, it can even work if all of us are dead, if it's taking place in 50, 60 years from now. It's timeless, completely timeless. And I don't want to repeat myself, but the sense of the Greyhound bus, it was always in America kind of subconscious, a vehicle of freedom. The freedom riders in the 1960s for civil rights, they were associated with the Greyhound bus. If you're not too wealthy, you can afford $15 or $20, whatever, and ride and ride, and it has a sense of untethered quality. But for Gloria, and a sense of freedom, the history of civil rights is very important. And for her, women's rights were civil rights, and vice versa. So I think the icon of the Greyhound bus is a very, very important anchor for the whole movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the use of the word untethered.
Conversations between the Glorias as going back and forth in time is a very, very beautiful thing, because we often talk to ourselves. Quite often I'm talking to friends I had 20 years ago, or man friends, girlfriends, associates, classmates. What do you think about that tree? What do you think? Look at the sky. Isn't it horrible what's happening in politics, etc.? But I have conversations with myself in different periods of life, throughout my life. I don't think it's an uncommon thing. I think it's universal a perception of the world.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think that the untethered nature of that is so interesting in this film. The other really interesting thing is the different genres and cultures and periods, obviously, that you're scoring. Were you excited about scoring the India scenes, for example? Because that's something quite different that I wasn't expecting in the film.
Yes, but every period and every location has extreme challenge for me. I didn't want it to sound like a travelogue. So the music had long string passages that could be in any culture, but even in Indian movies about freedom, about travel, not travelogue, travel. But it had slight touches of the Indian flute called a bansuri here and there, just to demark location. But the constant, again, the amplified guitar accompanies a Gloria on the train in the middle of India. So in the introduction to the thematic material in India is accompanied by the guitar, American amplified guitar. It kind of sets an American in India as a very, very simple device. When it cuts back to the highway and you hear the guitar again, it isn't jarring.
Yeah. And so what you're saying really is the instrumentation allows you to connect these very disparate parts of the film almost subconsciously. That never really occurred to me before. And it reminds me of this as well, because in a Julie Taymor film, we often see flights of fancy, right? It's something that she does very well. What was the most challenging flight of fancy that you had to score in this film?
I think that was after the racist cab driver scene, when she's running on a treadmill, and she slams a taxi door after having a verbal altercation with a very unpleasant racist driver, and she was having so much tension and turbulence in her life at that time that Julie had a poetic imagery of moving cityscapes and sidewalks and roads and yellow lines in the middle of highways, all all kind of an Escher-like depiction of cinematic poetry. But she's running and slightly out of breath, and it seemed like she was on a treadmill. So the music there was super frenetic, very nervous string quartet music, accompanied by our friend, the amplified guitar, playing long lines of against the agitato, the agitated strings behind it. But it was something about a string quartet, which is very personal, and it can be very almost like fingernails, talons grip on the back of your neck because of the strong individual sound of bowing that a string quartet is capable of. The strong down bows and the rosin on the bow is very prevalent when it's played in such a marcato manner.
I say this to composers all the time, but I just think strings are so evocative because they're so organic. And I love it when strings are used to evoke emotion like sadness or melancholy, but I also love it when they are used to invoke tension. And that's exactly what I was hoping that you would say, because that's what I got out of that particular scene. It reminds me of this. You and Julie obviously have a very long, rich history of collaboration professionally. What is it about her creative vision that you most admire?
Her fearlessness. She doesn't look at what's commercial, what the audience will like, she has these very pure ideas about visual content having extreme storytelling content. The visuals convey content in a way that a great oil painting might. So dialogue is not as important in these scenes of flights of fancy, but in general, it's all-encompassing. When you ask about her, she's a brilliant director of actors, and that's the first thing that you have to discuss in the whole lexicon. After that, after she has this ensemble, and they understand her vision, and she lets them be them as actors, contributors, then the other magical Julie Taymor Okay.
Are you there? Sorry, bit of a dropout. We're fine. Yeah, so I'll just pick up from here, if that's okay. I was going to ask you, the film ends in a really poetic way. The last three words of the film are we the people. I'm just wondering, ultimately, what did you take away from what the film was trying to say about where we are culturally and politically right now?
Well, we're at the crossroads. In our nation, it was a struggle from the very beginning, from founding fathers, whether who is we? Who is we? That's a question, a strange question. Is it Are women part of we? Are Black folks part of we? Or what's a we? In the 18th century, and they're discussing whether Black people were actually we, and then they were considered 3/4 of a human being, and 3/4 was conceived by the Southern slave owners to make their slaves count as votes, so they can just pad the election with 3/4 of human beings. So I think it's an experiment that is trying to be refined through the years, our nation, the United States, and to make a more perfect union, it takes extremely amount of attention, coddling, a lot of work, a lot of addressing and constantly tweaking. We have to remind ourselves how delicate the experiment of democracy is. It can go like this. It can just vanish, and it can be turned off and not appear for another 200 years, 300 years, or whatever. So this period where, frankly, I think a lot of people in this country, mainly a certain group of Republicans, frankly, don't like democracy. They wanted to put the word democracy in the same bin as liberalism or socialism or something like that. They don't like that word democracy. So it's only a certain section of the people, but I'm afraid it can catch like a brush fire, and all of a sudden you wake up in a year and a half later and you find yourself a part of a non-liberal democratic nation. And it's very possible. And I'm kind of scared of it.
Yeah. And it's like when a certain part of the population aren't educated, maybe, they preyed on by their fears. And I think that's what this film is also trying to say, because a lot of the stuff that Gloria was fighting against was about fear of, equality and, equal opportunity and so forth. But look, we don't have all day, because I would love to talk about this with you all day, but I want to get a little bit more superficial before we go, just a little bit more. And that's your impressive awards history. So you have 4 Oscar nominations. And I remember when you were nominated for Interview with the Vampire. This is one of my favorite scores. And I was so happy that a genre score was nominated, especially that one. And you won for Frida, another Julie Taymor production, for which you also won the Golden Globe. Can you talk us through your highlight for winning those awards and what it meant to you professionally and personally?
Well, the movies with Neil Jordan, Interview with the Vampire, Michael Collins, it was almost unreal situation, because there was no studio really backing us up. There was no, and all of a sudden I got a call and, hey, you're nominated for Interview with the Vampire or something like that. And it was something out of a Fellini movie or something like that. I'm born in Brooklyn here, I didn't ever equate that much media attention, red carpets, people with cameras, and flocks of people. It was out of something, David Attenborough looking at human beings saying, how curious we are, So it was a strange event, and in the same way, I felt very honored because I met people from editors from Latvia or you know, South American countries and Asia and as Africa and things that I was very lucky to feel to befriend or meet people in the gatherings, you know. So there's so much emphasis on the stars and everything, but you know, makers of little documentary movies and editors of world cinema. It's a beautiful thing if you think about it. It's not only the glitz and the Fellini-esque thing, but it's, you know, it's the camaraderie of the arts and sciences.
Yeah.
That's really humbling. It's humbling.
Yeah, it's all the what we call creative arts that I think are so special. And you'll always be now known as Oscar winner Elliot Goldenthal. And on that note, we thank you so much for your time today. Good luck this award season and congrats on a really great score for the Glorias.